The main door to the lighthouse was locked. The main gate was locked. The beds were unmade. The clocks had even stopped. What happened to the 3 lighthouse keepers? They scoured the island looking for the 3 lighthouse keepers, but they never found them. This is the mystery of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, one of the most unsettling maritime mysteries of all time. Welcome to the Paranormal Post. I'm Clayton Morris. If you love tales of the unexplained and you love scary stories, then go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And one more thing you can do, which is also turn on that little bell notification so you'll be notified whenever we publish a new video, which we publish multiple videos per week. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse sits on a tiny island just off the west coast of Scotland. The tiny island is called Eilean Moor. Being off the west coast of Scotland is given to some very unpredictable and wild weather patterns for anyone who's ever visited this region. A storm can come out of nowhere. In fact, a few years ago, my wife and I were traveling to this area when a sudden storm came up. We were trying to make it over to these islands when the ferry that we were to ride on was canceled. They said, nope, the ferry cannot pass, trip canceled. So we couldn't get over to these small islands just off the west coast of Scotland. If we had been on that island at the time, we would have been trapped there for days until the ferry could come back and pick us up. This happens all of the time in this region. Back to our mystery. The year is 1899, and the Flannan Isles Lighthouse had just been built. It was considered state-of-the-art at the time. It sits 75 feet tall, complete with a railroad docking yard for supplies. It was an important transatlantic link, making sure that ships didn't smash into the rocks when they were on their way to the shipping town of Leith, Scotland. The newly built lighthouse was staffed by Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and one occasional, Donald MacArthur. That's what they called them, occasionals, because they would travel back and forth to the mainland. Everything was going fine until December of the year 1900. And that's where our mystery begins, on December 15th, the year 1900. On December 15th, something odd happened. As the steamship Arctur was on its way from Philadelphia, as it passed by the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, it noted that the light was not operational. It was dark. It wasn't until this ship docked in Leith, Scotland 3 days later that this irregularity was noted in the logbooks. Due to the horrible weather, the relief ship that was set to come and bring supplies to the island had to be postponed until just after Christmas on December 26th. It was stationed on the nearby island of Lewis, and it couldn't leave to come to the island to find out what was going on. Finally, the storm passed, and Captain Jim Harvey on December 26th took his boat, the Hesperus, and managed to make it to the lighthouse. But as soon as he arrived, he noticed something odd. The outside gate was locked. Then, after they made it through that gate, they went to the main part of the lighthouse. That door was locked. Finally, they made it inside the lighthouse when they noticed the beds were left unmade. They noticed that a pair of oilskins was hanging inside the lighthouse. Oilskins are a type of inclement weather gear that you'd put on. And given the fact that it's December on a western island in Scotland where storms and cold rain come out of nowhere, you don't leave the lighthouse without your oilskins. As Captain Jim Harvey made his way through the lighthouse, he realized this had been unmanned for days. They had left, gone, no sign of them, and no trace. The captain of the Hesperus sent an urgent telegram back to the mainland saying this: "A dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The 3 keepers, Ducat, Marshall, and the occasional, have disappeared from the island. The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago. Poor fellows. They must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane." Days passed, and the 3 men were nowhere to be found. The crew continued to scour the island for hints, any sign of what might have happened to these men. When they made it to the western part of the island, they discovered that the landing had been nearly destroyed in some sort of heavy storm. On December 29th, just a few days after the Hesperus discovered that they had gone missing, the Northern Lighthouse Board sent an official investigator to the island to find out what was what. The investigation was headed up by Robert Muirhead, and when he got to the island, he noticed that the oilskins had been left by Douglas MacArthur. They were his. He was the occasional who would travel back and forth from the mainland. Why did he leave them there in such a rush? All eyes went to the western part of the island, where this severe storm had damaged the landing, where supplies would be brought to and from the island. Did all 3 men go to this section of the island at one point and were suddenly hit by a giant wave and thrown down into the craggy rocks below? That would seem like a fair assessment. Except that when we go back to the lighthouse, we discover that the logbook, their notes, had mentioned the damage to the western part of the island. They cataloged it. They knew it had happened. Because Robert Muirhead read the logbook, he noted that the last entry was on December 15th. That's the very same night that the lighthouse was dark when the ship passing to go to the town of Leith went by. So what happened that night? Muirhead believes that maybe two of the men went out after dinner to try to repair a portion of that western part of the island, the landing space. Protocol made sure that one man was to always stay back inside the lighthouse and stay on post. That was the rule. He believed that perhaps Douglas MacArthur stayed back at the lighthouse while the other two men went out to repair the western part of the island. Did he at one point decide that he should leave the lighthouse and go inspect where his friends had gone? He suspects that something mysterious must have happened for MacArthur to have abandoned his post, to leave his oilskins behind, and to rush outside. But to think about that for a minute, it's howling wind and rain. In this inclement weather, in December, would you leave your oilskins behind on a lark? Or wouldn't you suit up and go find your friends? Muirhead believed that a giant wave carried all three men into the sharp rocks below. No bodies, though, were ever found. And newspaper accounts at the time led to widespread speculation. Was there paranormal activity? Was there a pirate kidnapping? There's no evidence to support any of it. And over the years, many people have compared this amazing maritime mystery to another incredible maritime mystery, the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste. Of course, if you haven't seen that video, we did a full video on the disappearance of the entire crew of the Mary Celeste. You can click that video here and watch the rest of it, or in the description below. No one has ever been able to solve the mystery of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. In fact, over the years, the Northern Lighthouse Board had a very difficult time trying to fill the positions of these three lighthouse keepers. No one wanted the job, and can you blame them? Who would want to go to this island after the disappearance of three men? People who visited the island in subsequent years claim that this island is haunted by the spirits of these three men. What do you think happened to the crew of the Flannan Lighthouse? Drop me a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And right now, go ahead and check out that other video on the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste. Click right here. We'll see you next time, everyone.